My knife seems to get duller when I try to sharpen it. What am I doing wrong? In this video, I'm going to give you 3 sharpening tips to help answer this, as well as how you can fix it. The first reason for a knife to feel duller after sharpening is the failure to maintain a specific angle. That's exactly what I'm doing here in an exaggerated fashion. I am not maintaining a specific angle and lifting the knife into the stone. This causes the edge to round over, and a rounded over edge is not sharp. This rounding over effect is especially true with cheap, soft aluminum oxide sharpening stones. They require very precise pressure and angle in order to work optimally. Slightly too much pressure with aluminum oxide stones will dig into the stone and round over the edge. Also, slightly too much angle on the stone will dig into the stone and round over the edge as well. Contrary to popular belief, these are not beginner-friendly stones. They do work well if you have the skill set to use them, but they will be very frustrating to learn on. So what's funny is that this knife was actually sharp before, it was very sharp before I started using this stone, and simply demonstrating this on the stone made it like almost completely dull. So there you have it. A much better option is a diamond plate, and it is much more forgiving, especially for beginners who are working on maintaining an angle. Your knife won't dig into the surface, and they are much more forgiving when applying pressure. I am not affiliated with any stone company, but I will leave a link to these diamond plates below. And here you can sort of see what that rounded over edge looks like. And in contrast, here's a knife that has been sharpened properly with a properly maintained angle. And you can see just how much crisper that apex is. And that's why this knife is sharp. And the other knife with the rounded over edge is dull. And here's what properly maintaining an angle looks like while sharpening. I have both of my wrists locked, and I am not twisting the knife on the stone. And in contrast, here you can see the knife being twisted on the stone. Again, this is an exaggerated motion that I'm doing here, but even the slightest twisting of the knife on the stone can cause an edge to round over and feel not sharp. The best way to maintain an angle on a sharpening stone is to use a reference point. That reference point can be something as simple as your thumb, and this is what I call the rule of thumb. Simply place the spine of the knife into the center of your thumb and bam! There's your angle, and a good way to quickly reference it. By keeping your thumb in the same place during the sharpening process, even lightly dragging it across the stone as you're sharpening, you will always know that you are on the same angle that you started at. Always keep your wrist locked and make sure that the knife handle doesn't move around in your hand. You can see here the wrist is twisting, and that is what's causing our angle to change. Twisting the wrist and letting the knife move around in your hand is what will get you in trouble. Use larger body movements to move the knife across the stone, such as twisting at the waist or bending at the hips. I know it sounds funny, but it works. This is an example of what you want to try to avoid. As you can see, both wrists are bending, and when you bend the wrist, it completely throws off the angle. Another reason the knife may feel duller after sharpening is you are over-angling the knife into the stone. Even if you do properly maintain a consistent angle on the stone, if the knife angle on the stone is too steep, your knife won't feel very sharp. And here's what that looks like. We end up with an angle that is not acute enough to be sharp. You can also have an angle that is too shallow in reference to the stone surface, thus not hitting the apex at all, causing you to remove material in the wrong area. And here's what that looks like. You can see where having the knife too shallow in reference to the stone is removing material farther up the bevel than is required and not hitting the apex at all. So what angle should you sharpen at? Well, the exact angle doesn't really matter, as long as you're not too steep or too shallow. If you must know a specific number, you're looking at around 17 to 20 degrees relative to the sharpening stone. So let's see what the rule of thumb gives us. Now as I'm moving the knife around to different positions on my thumb, you can see the angle varies slightly. We might be slightly over or slightly under the optimal angle, but this is still okay. These will all still be workable angles for sharpening. Like I said, the exact angle you choose doesn't matter, as long as the angle you choose and the reference point you choose, on your thumb for instance, stays the same during the entire sharpening process. One way you can quickly reference an old angle on a knife is to use a black marker and simply mark the entire bevel. Here's what that bevel looks like after it's been marked. Set your angle on the stone and make one precise pass. Then check the edge bevel to see where you removed the marker. A bevel with more marker removed towards the apex is sharpened at too steep of an angle relative to the stone and the existing angle on the knife. A bevel with more marker removed along the bottom of the apex has been sharpened at too shallow of an angle relative to the stone and the existing angle that's already on the knife. If you make a pass on the stone and perfectly remove all of the marker off of the bevel, you have successfully matched the current angle already on the knife bevel. This is a good way to quickly reference an old angle already on a knife, or to quickly reference the angle you're currently working on throughout the sharpening process. Properly maintaining an angle is the first step when learning to sharpen. Remember, what works for me may not be the best option for you. Despite what you may hear, there's no right or wrong way to sharpen a knife. The next step in learning to sharpen is the burr. I will link to a video on the end screen of this video that will help explain that. As always, thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.